Hi guys, it's Venture-Ette Ashley and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're anything like me, then you're probably already planning your next trip out of the country as soon as we can start traveling again. Now, I am truly grateful that I am in my hometown and I've been safe and working, but don't get me wrong, I'm still planning my exit strategy to leave the US as soon as we're able to. So if you're thinking of going to Oaxaca, Mexico, I highly recommend you do. It's such a beautiful and unique place, a place that you should definitely go explore if you have the chance to. So before I continue, I do want to say that I do have my blog post linked down below that goes into even more depth of where to go and how to, with all the links that you would need. So be sure to check that out after the video. So the first thing I want to say about Oaxaca is that there is Oaxaca City and there is Oaxaca State. So for this video, I'm going to specifically be talking about Oaxaca City and some day trips that you can do from the city. Though if you do have a chance and you have the time to explore more of the state, it's something I highly recommend you do. I unfortunately didn't get to when I was there, but while I was in Oaxaca, so many people told me that I needed to go up to the mountains and go to the beach. The most famous one is Puerto Escondido. And I'm really kind of kicking myself that I didn't get a chance to, but hey, it just means I need to go back. So again, this will be mainly about the city and some day trips around the city. So first thing I want to say about Oaxaca City itself is that compared to other well-known places in Mexico like Cancun and Los Cabos and Puerto Vallarta, it's a completely different vibe. Now, I've been to those other parts of Mexico with my family, and I have to say, you typically see a lot of resorts, and I see it more as a party area and whatnot. And while there are still some cultural things that you can do in those places, Oaxaca City is a place where you're not gonna see resorts. There are some beautiful, really nice hotels, but it's not a resort place. It's a place where I feel is way more authentic. I mean, just walking around the streets, you see the colonial style buildings, which the city has just done such a great job of preserving. The buildings, not only are they colonial style, but they're very still, freshly painted. They're bright, they're colorful and vibrant, that all you want to do is just walk around the city. And that's another thing to note too, is that places like Cancun and whatnot, you constantly need a taxi, which are just overly priced there, wow, or a bus or something to get around. But in Oaxaca City, because it's just a small city and the streets are very narrow, there's cobblestone everywhere, it just kind of reminded me of Europe. You could easily walk, across the city within 25 minutes, maybe a little bit more, but it just kind of goes to show you can easily just see the city, on your own, walking around and not having to worry about transportation. Now, of course, there are taxis there, but they are way cheaper than what you would find in Cancun or in Los Cabos. I mean, just for a few dollars will definitely get you pretty far. But one thing I do want to know about, just kind of going around the city and its safety is that, especially if you are a female, traveling there solo, definitely be careful. So when I was there, I was with a friend slash client working in Oaxaca, and there was one night where I was leaving her Airbnb and walked back to mine. Now, it was less than a 10-minute walk, so I really didn't think much of it, and also it wasn't that late. It was 10:30, if not 11 p.m. So I was walking back, and then I was on the phone, and then all of a sudden an older Oaxacan woman stopped me, and she spoke to me in Spanish, telling me that I really needed to be careful, with my phone and my bag. And I said okay, but kind of spooked me a bit, so I just ran all the way back to my Airbnb. So I asked my Airbnb host about this, and they told me that what had been happening is that there's been a lot more petty theft. So especially if you're, like I said, you're alone, you're a foreigner, especially if you're a woman out late at night, because Oaxaca State is one of the poorest, if not the poorest states in Mexico, it just kind of begs for that petty theft. And so they said what's been happening is that people have just been kind of either running or driving by, just snatching phones and snatching bags, out of your hands. And, they don't hurt you, they're just taking your stuff and running with it. And so honestly, throughout the day and even in the evening, I truly did feel safe, especially in the city center. But one thing I want to note is that when you leave the city center, where my Airbnb was 2 blocks out of the center. The streets are very quiet, they're dimly lit, you really don't see anyone on the street, so it just kind of makes it like the prime location for someone to just kind of run and take your things. So if you're going to be out late at night, highly recommend you take a taxi. They're super cheap, and so I do have a number listed in my blog post that for you to save so you can quickly call up a taxi if you need one rather than having to worry about flagging one down. So like I said, Oaxaca City is such a walkable city, and so you could really just spend hours just walking and exploring and just seeing what the city has to offer. But some places that I just highly recommend you check out, like while you're walking around and exploring, is the first is Zocalo. So Zocalo is a main plaza or square that's like in the city center, and it's very European style. Like I said, it's a square, and there's like beautiful restaurants surrounding it, and it's a great place to just kind of walk in the morning as people are starting their day. And it's also a great place to just sit down in the evening, have a drink or have a meal, and just people walk by. There's a beautiful gazebo in the middle as well, so definitely a place to walk around and explore. The next place I want to share with you guys is Habla. So Habla is a neighborhood that is also in Oaxaca, and it's just a neighborhood there, and it's just really famous for, it's just like bright, colorful buildings. That's where I managed to get this photo of myself and also this photo of my friend / client. And it's just a quiet neighborhood, beautiful like cafes and restaurants, and like I said, just it's quiet, so you're not having to worry about like the crowds. It's not like Oaxaca City has really much of crowds anyways, but it's just a beautiful neighborhood to explore and a great place to get some good photos too. Another place that I want to share with you guys is Cruz, which really translates to like cross of a rock or cross made of rock, and it is just like this beautiful sculpture of a cross made of rocks. But it's a beautiful thing to look at, but also what I love about it is just like the buildings surrounding it. Again, they're bright, they're colorful, a great place to take photos, and just a great place to just really just kind of walk through and explore. Lastly, another thing that you should definitely check out while you're there are the markets, and there's 2 types of markets that I highly recommend you check out. The first are the food markets. So there's quite a few around the city, but the one that I went to was Mercado 20 de Noviembre, which is Mercado 20 de Noviembre. And what I loved about these markets is that they're just like these massive markets that just has like everything you can think of in terms of food. I mean, they had like fresh fruit and vegetables, grains, they had grasshoppers if you're, feeling adventurous. They have the famous mole negro that you can buy, the Oaxacan chocolate, and they even have just places where you can just sit down and eat. So it's a great place if you really just want to kind of get some good local foods. So definitely highly recommend it, especially if you're staying in an Airbnb. It's a great place to go grocery shopping. So definitely check one of these markets out. Another market that you definitely need to check out, or I don't really know the name, but you saw these quite a bit throughout the city, and they're just these markets that sell, just everything that is like local to Oaxaca. So like the clothing, the weaved shirts with the famous embroidery, kitchen utensils, jewelry, crafts, toys, I mean just everything. So I found these quite a bit throughout the city, and so it's really easy to just kind of stumble across one, and it's a great way to just, buy some souvenirs as well. So because the city itself isn't very big, there are definitely some day trips that I highly recommend that you do while you're there, and they're really easy to do, and like I said, you can do it within a day, honestly, at a half a day. So the first one though that I highly recommend is Monte Alban. So Monte Alban is an archaeological site. So it was one of the first, if not the first cities in Mesoamerica where the Zapotecs once lived many centuries ago, and the Zapotecs are the indigenous people of the state of Oaxaca. So now you can go there to visit. So what me and my friend and I did, well, first we were trying to go on our own with the public transportation, with the buses. We had difficulty finding them, but instead we ended up finding this other tour group, which was called Viejas Turistas Mitla. And so we stumbled across this by chance, and it was honestly perfect. So it was about 60 pesos round trip, and you just get on this massive bus, and it's about like a 30-minute drive like up into the mountains. And I was honestly like a bit scared just because the road was very it was very windy and very narrow, and I just really, and the bus was so massive, I just kind of worried that we would fall over, but we didn't. We made it to the top, and once you do pay another fee to enter, which is 80 pesos. And I do want to say that if you're going to bring your camera, you can, but you cannot bring a tripod, so don't even bother bringing your tripod. But yes, bring your camera to take some photos. But we were there, and honestly, you wouldn't need any more than 2 hours. And so to get back on the bus, it was just super easy. It was just kind of like every hour there was a bus that would take you back to the city. So definitely plan out your day accordingly so you can take the bus, because if you miss it, you would have to wait like another hour. And then also I want to note is that even though I'm Mexican, I have tan skin and I rarely burn. Because we were up there for 2 hours and there's no trees to cover you, I actually got sunburned, which was the first time in, I don't know, years, since I was like a child. So highly recommend, especially if you have sensitive skin, wear the sunblock, wear a hat, you know, wear some coverings or something, because the sun there, it's pretty strong. Another place that you have to check out is Irve el Agua. So Irve el Agua is about an hour outside of Oaxaca City, and there are these rock formations that are just beautiful. There's like little hiking trails that you can like walk around it, but these rock formations, they have like these natural spring water that just kind of comes out of the rocks, and they created these beautiful just kind of pools of water that you can swim in. Now, one of them, and I guess the one that's like really just mostly photographed, apparently it's man-made from what I heard, but regardless, it's still a place that you can swim. The views are just amazing. I mean, swimming in those kind of pools with just views of the mountains, I mean, it's totally worth it. So, again, so I was lucky enough that my Airbnb hosts were lucky enough to drive me and my friend, so highly recommend Airbnb, and especially Airbnb hosts that have a car. True lifesaver right there. So so we did that, and it's about an hour drive like I mentioned, and you do pay I think about like 20 pesos, so like $1 to get in. And I highly recommend you go on a weekday, especially in the morning. Mondays or Tuesdays would be better, but if you really want to get some good photos, go first thing right when they open, right before the crowds start to come. But they also have changing rooms, so you can like bring your bathing suit to change into later. They have like food and drink vendors, so it's definitely a place where you could go like all day, swim, drink, eat, and yeah, and even enjoy sunset. So I highly recommend, beautiful spot, and yeah, you just need to go. Another place that you have to go is a small town called Teotitlán del Val. So Teotitlán del Val is about 17 miles outside the city, so it's about like 45 minutes drive. So of course, if you don't have great Airbnb hosts like I did with the car, you can definitely get a taxi or a bus or a colectivo, which is like a shared taxi, and those shared taxis are a lot cheaper because everyone is paying a small price, and so it will be in a shared car, but that's just like another alternative. So you know, you get to Teotitlán del Val, and it's a small town, and what it's famous for is the rugs, the weaved rugs and the weaved shirts with the embroidery. So it's a place that you can go to easily just in the morning to check out. And if you want one of those rugs or those shirts, this is the place to go. It's going to be not only the place with more options, but also even like cheaper options compared to the city. And also what I highly recommend while you're there is the restaurant that Anthony Bourdain went to many years ago, where the Zapotec woman, you know, cooked traditional Oaxacan food. The name of the restaurant is Tlamanali. And so unfortunately the day that I went, which was a Monday, they are closed, so don't go on Mondays if you want to eat at this place. Apparently, like the woman, it takes her like 2 weeks to make like a mole sauce. It's very authentic, very just fresh, and very just time intensive with the food that she creates. But because we couldn't go to this restaurant, another restaurant that I highly recommend that is also just absolutely delicious as well is Tierra Antigua. So Tierra Antigua is this beautiful open space restaurant, and they have, again, the traditional Zapotec food, and they do have vegetarian options. So because I'm vegan, they did accommodate and made me a vegan dish, you know, with empanadas and, you know, veggies and empanadas. And I did ask for a side of the mole sauce, which just highly recommend you get. I'll dive into more of that a bit later. But Tierra Antigua, very good. But if you really want to go to where Anthony Bourdain went to, go to forgot it again, Tlamanali. So another thing that I highly recommend you do while you are in Oaxaca is go mezcal tasting. So we all know tequila, we all either love it or we all hate it, one or the other. I feel like there's no in between. But in Oaxaca, they are known for their mezcal. And mezcal is made from agave, and it definitely has a much stronger, smokier flavor to it. But while you're there, it's definitely worth checking out. The one that I recommend that you go to if you're going to do like a taste testing or like tour is Casa Riquezas. And another reason why I recommend this place is because my Airbnb hosts, they have been to so many of these mezcal tours, with their other Airbnb guests, and they told me that Casa Riquezas was by far the best one in terms of how they like explain the process and how they just kind of interact with their guests and everything. And so not only was it very informative, but of course we got to taste some mezcal. I personally don't drink anymore, but while I was there, I figured, tasting is not gonna hurt. And so the price for this, I really can't tell you because this woman gave us this beautiful grand tour of, an explanation of how mezcal is made, gave us this tastings, and she never gave us a price. She just said, okay, well, that's everything. And so if anything, I just made sure to tip her really well, for her time and also for the tasting of the mezcal. But highly recommend you check this out because the process is really cool to learn. And yeah, and also too, if you really like trying different alcohols from different parts of the world, mezcal is definitely one that you should try. Now for my favorite part of travel is food. So if you are a foodie like me, you are going to be in heaven in Oaxaca. Oaxaca is just well known for its like food and its dishes, just because they are just very like iconic, they're historic, there's so much history in all of their dishes, and they're just so like flavorful as well. So, and also too, if you're vegan like me, just know that there were definitely plenty of vegan options of the Zapotec Oaxacan food, and there was also many other restaurants as well that offer just other types of vegan foods, vegan options as well. So just know that you won't go hungry. There will be plenty for you to eat while you're there. So first, I really want to start off by saying some dishes that you have to have while you're there. The first is a tlayuda. A tlayuda is basically, to start with, is like a massive, like enlarged tortilla. Still very flat, very thin, and just really big and round. And typically it's filled with like meat and like some vegetables or like onions and stuff like that. But because I'm vegan, I was like, I need a vegan version. And the best one that I found was Doña Ceci. Doña Ceci has vegan and non-vegan options, but it's at this small little shop near Cruz, and with what I liked about her vegan version is that she had like some beans, some vegetables, and the way that it was cooked is on this like hot like stovetop thing, very fresh, and it was only like $4 or $5 US, and it's like this massive thing. I could only eat half of it, so it's 2 meals for you right there, or 1 if you're really hungry. Another thing that you have to have, and you probably have heard of, is the mole. So in case you don't know what mole is a type of sauce. It typically comes in a powder, which you kind of heat with some water to kind of liquefy it and make it into a sauce, and it's generally served kind of like over chicken or or as an enchilada sauce or even over chilaquiles. But what's unique about mole is that every mole recipe is different, just because there's over 20 or 30 ingredients just to make one mole sauce, and everyone likes it a little bit different. Some like it a little spicy, some like a little sweet, some like it a little bitter. So that's why like no mole recipe is ever the same. So the thing with mole in Oaxaca though is that there are 7 moles for you to try. I don't know the names of all 7, I'm sorry, but ones that I did get to have is like the mole verde, which is mole green, there's mole amarillo, which is the yellow mole, but the most famous and iconic mole in Oaxaca is mole negro meaning black. It has the hoja santa, which is like a pepper or herb or something, but it gives the mole a unique, distinct taste that I guess just really that a lot of people really enjoy, and that's why it makes it so famous. So the best one that I found again was in the Tierra Antigua restaurant in Teotitlán del Val. For me, I love my mole sauce, just like a little, I don't like it sweet for one thing, I don't like it bitter, but the one at Tierra Antigua, it had just like the right amount of kick to it, and it was just still very rich and creamy and just oh so good. So definitely keep your eye out for mole, but specifically the mole negro. So So the next thing that I highly recommend is Tecate. So Tecate is a pre-Hispanic drink, and it's something that I honestly didn't know until I made it to Oaxaca, but what I love about it is that it's already vegan. So it's made from corn masa, so like the corn flour, some cocoa beans, flour from the cocoa beans, and also some mamey or mami seeds, and it's all just kind of blended together or pounded together into a paste, and then it's like mixed with water. And so again, the water does not dilute it or anything like that. All the flavors are very much there, and it's just this kind of not overly sweet, because there's no added sugar to it, but it's not overly sweet, but there's some sort of sweetness to it, and it's very refreshing. It's served cold, and the best one that I found was at this market called La Cosecha. So La Cosecha is this little kind of outdoor market in Oaxaca City. Highly recommend you go, because not only does it have Tecate, but it had just all these stands of all the Oaxacan foods you could think of, like tamales, empanadas, the mole negro, tlayuda, tecate. I mean, just everything. And it's nice because it's covered, and you can just like sit on these just kind of like picnic tables, you know, get your food from whichever vendor you want, you know, sit down and just enjoy like a really nice and really cheap meal. So that's where I found the tecate, and what was interesting is that she served it in this bowl, and so you're just drinking like, you know, out of a bowl. Like I said, it is served chilled, and it's really refreshing and not overly sweet, and just so nice to have on a hot day. Another drink that you have to have is the drinking chocolate in Oaxaca. So first I want to say Oaxaca is known for their cacao, for their chocolate. So if you really love chocolate, this is the place for you, as well as for coffee. Oaxaca is also known for their coffee, but make sure you find yourself like a nice chocolate bar from Oaxaca. But the best way that I enjoyed their chocolate in Oaxaca was drinking it. So how they do it is that for one thing, I just want to say that it's not like the American drinking chocolate where it's very overly sweet and just overly rich. This one, it has a unique and distinct taste. So in the chocolate, they have, you know, cinnamon in it, and, you know, some sugar, and it's actually typically mixed with water. And you would think again, oh, that might dilute it or like lose its flavor, but honestly, it doesn't. The cacao in it is already like so rich that the water, it just makes it more refreshing more than anything. And you can find these like drinking like chocolates literally just about everywhere throughout the city, and honestly throughout the state of Oaxaca. And you can either have it hot or have it chilled. Highly recommend you get it chilled. It's just the most refreshing, most delicious drink you can have in Oaxaca. I literally drink it every day, like for breakfast, because it was generally healthy. I mean, maybe some sugar, some places made it without sugar, which was even better. But if you really want like a true kind of like authentic like drinking or chocolate drink, the one I recommend is again at the La Cosecha market. So again, there was another vendor where there was this man, he had this like big, beautiful jug, and when I like ordered the drinking chocolate, he made it fresh right away. So mixing the chocolate with the water and then like heating it up over this like hot fire and just like stirring just very like aggressively. It was really just a fun thing to watch. And so once he finished, he poured it again in this beautiful, just colorful bowl. Again, I'm drinking chocolate. I mean, what more could you ask for? But it's something I highly recommend that you try while you're there. It's just so good. And yeah, so if you've had it before, let me know, but it's one thing I truly miss about Oaxaca. So the last place I'm gonna recommend, so it's not so much for the food, but it's more so just kind of like the views. So there is this beautiful like hotel slash bar called Los Amantes. It's right across from the famous church there called Templo de Santo Domingo de Guzman. And what I love about this place is that you know, you go up the steps and you just get to see the entire city. You get to see the church right there, and it's just the best place to go there for sunset, have a drink, maybe have a little appetizer. But highly recommend you go check this place out for some just amazing views of the city. So alright guys, that wraps up the video. I hope you found this video insightful and helpful. I do want to remind you guys that I do have my blog post down below that dives in deeper into more of how to go to all these places, as well with links to everything, and also how to get to and from the airport in case you don't have a ride. So be sure to check that out. So please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more videos, and also if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me at Venture-Ette on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So thank you so much guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.